Think of winning college sports teams, Notre Dame football, Duke basketball like that. Most folks, they don't think of squash. But get this, the Trinity Tigers hold the longest winning streak in college sports history with 183 consecutive victories and 10 years of titles in squash. And they do it all with a budget of under $10,000. Joining me now is Tigers head coach Paul Asiente and three of his senior stars, David Sullivan, Neil Robertson, and Simba Muwadi. Thank you all for coming. So, Coach, congratulations, first of all. Incredible winning streak. How do you build a winning team?
You get the fastest horses in the race. And in particular with this group, what we focused on is just creating a family, a sense of team. Because it's an individual sport, and these guys put that aside and they focus on the team.
So you have star players, but when you have stars, how do you get them to think like a team instead of like an individual star?
Well, all we focus on is a dual season, and you know, and each match contributes to the finals. We have the team championships at the end of the season, and then when it comes time for the individual championships, I don't even coach the team because we don't put any emphasis on individual score.
Is that right? So you just let it go?
Let it go. It's up. That's for them.
And it's worked that way for how many years?
Well, the 15 years that I've been at Trinity.
Now, interestingly enough, I'm going to get to the players in just a second, but interestingly enough, you didn't play squash until when?
I picked up the game when I was 27.
27, and you're the most winning squash coach in the world.
Well, you know what they say, those that can do and those that can't coach. So
you're from the South Bronx, right?
Yeah, I'm from the
How
Bronx.
does a kid from the South Bronx pick up a squash racket at 27?
Well, I went to West Point to be a gymnastics coach. And I got hurt while I was at West Point, and I picked up tennis. I got the coaching job there, and I was made the head squash coach, but I didn't even know the courts were in the facility.
Now, David, did you come to Trinity because of squash?
That was definitely a part of it. I met Coach. He's a great guy, and during the recruiting process, you know, he was really, you know, always calling me, always wanting me to come, and I also knew it was a great academic environment.
So now we should also emphasize squash doesn't offer full athletic scholarships, correct?
This is true.
So you really have to love the game. How did you pick up your love for the game?
I started back when I was a junior. I'm from Philadelphia area, and I just picked it up, played junior tournaments, and then I met these guys, the international players, and that was just a whole new level.
Well, okay, Neil, where are you from?
From Zimbabwe.
Zimbabwe. Is it a national sport in Zimbabwe, or?
It's not a big sport, but we have a pretty good history. We have a good junior program, and we produce a lot of good squash players.
And Simba, you're also from Zimbabwe.
Yeah, that's true. I'm from Harare too. Yeah.
So how did you go from a foreign country with a sort of unusual sport for the United States to come here to play?
I mean, there were people who were here a long time before I got here, and they kind of put my name out there, and they tried to get me to come, and finally convinced me to come over. And
what was the convincing element?
It's just like you get a chance to play the game you love, and you really have to. You don't have to worry about equipment. You don't have to worry about getting to the courts. There's always electricity.
But in Zimbabwe, where you have, what, 1,000,000% inflation every year and other problems like forgive me, but a crazy leader who's been leading that country for too long, frankly. I mean, you got problems over there, but coming here, you don't get a lot of money in squash. It's not like baseball, basketball, football, where the coach can dangle a career of millions of dollars in front of you.
Yeah, that's true, but I mean, I get to play the sport I love. It goes beyond just the money, and I get to play the thing I've always wanted to do, and I enjoy it, and that's all that really counts.
Now, Coach, $10,000 a year is not a lot of money for a professional team, particularly when you have to go abroad to recruit players. How do you do it?
Well, when I first started recruiting internationally, I was a U.S. coach, so I was traveling on the U.S. Olympic dole, if you will.
Okay.
And I was traveling, and I developed relationships with the national coaches of other countries, and then I've been able to maintain those relationships via the phone and email, and they've been very
So in
good.
other words, you use your fellowship with coaches all over the world as kind of your earpiece to hear about good players. So how did you hear about these guys from Zimbabwe?
Well, we had a young man that came through a few years earlier, and we've also had a fairly good South African squash following, and they mentioned to me that there's some great young men out there that we should be recruiting. And actually, interestingly enough, in Neil's case, his biggest advocate was a young lady that was on the squash team, and she said, "Oh, Neil is a terrific player." And then I didn't realize
she just wanted him to come over. She just had eyes
well,
for the
they were
guy,
actually
right?
boyfriend and girlfriend, but I didn't know it
I
at the
figured
time.
that. Okay, all right. Was the same true for Simba over here?
No, Simba was, you know, the top-ranked junior in the country, and we were very anxious to get him. Simba arrived to school in January. He arrived at JFK in a tremendous snowstorm in flip-flops, and it was the first time he'd seen snow.
You didn't know what you were getting into?
I had no idea. I'd never seen it in my life.
Now, my stepson is actually from Nicaragua. He loves the cold, even though Nicaragua is a tropical country. Do you actually like the cold?
No.
So there's nothing but squash here.
Yeah, it's all about
well, the ladies
squash,
aren't bad either,
yeah,
right?
The lady.
Okay, all right. Very important distinction there. Now, David, is there a kind of a subculture around the world of folks who are interested in squash, who communicate with each other via internet and other means?
Yes, I'd definitely say, I mean, these guys know more than I do, but, you know, Junior Olympics are held in the U.S. every year, so that just starts it right off the bat.
So, for example, did you know about these guys even before you met them?
I would have if I was at that level, I'd say. But everybody kind of knows everyone, I'd say.
Do you guys communicate with your fellow players back in Zimbabwe and in South Africa and other places around the world?
A little bit. They follow the college scene, and we follow what they do in the juniors, so we do follow each other a lot. Now,
Coach, even though you got a budget of $10,000, we should mention that Bear Stearns has a relationship with squash. Talk about that.
Yeah, it's wonderful. This is the end of the first year in our relationship. Bear Stearns is our corporate sponsor. They've stepped up and made a wonderful financial support to college squash, both men and women. We've got 56 men.
And that's beyond the $10,000 a year budget you have for recruiting, right?
Well, I don't see any of the Bear Stearns money, but but the association does, and it's a wonderful symbiotic relationship because you know, the best and the brightest are going to the best schools in the game of squash, as the New York Times suggested a few months ago. And Bear Stearns, in supporting this game, is having first dibs, if you will, on these kids as they're graduating from college.
So you guys might have a career as financiers. Does that interest you, Simba?
To a certain extent, it does.
You think you might do that, go into finance?
I'm thinking about it. I'm contemplating that, yeah.
Neil, how about you?
I'm an engineer, so I'm not going into the finance.
And David?
Trying to get in there.
Trying to get into finance.
Yep.
Well, with a relationship with Bear Stearns like you have. Relationships, one thing you got to learn from an old guy like me, relationships is where it's at. That's how you get the job. It's all through relationships. Even though it would be nice to have those $1 million salaries that they're dangling in front of football players, wouldn't it, honestly?
Yes.
Yeah. And how are you perceived, Coach, when in fact all the big money is with football, is with basketball, is with baseball? Even though you got the most winning team in college history, are you still sort of a second ringer because you don't bring in all the money?
Oh, there's no doubt. I mean, one of the challenges for the game of squash is to try to get it to grow. And getting in Sports Illustrated last month was a big boon for the game of squash. But on the flip side of the coin, you know, we do enjoy the family smallness of it to some extent. You know, I've been doing this 35 years, and I never realized what pressure was until Sports Illustrated came and followed us for 2 days the week that we played Princeton. So knowing that Sports Illustrated was coming out a week later and that the streak of 10 years might come to an end and that's what they were going to be writing about, that's way too much
What happened
pressure.
at the end of the day with Princeton?
We snuck through.
You snuck through by just a hair? Or?
Just a hair.
Boy, well, congratulations. You got a winning team. It's a wonderful story. We hope you go on to do great things in the world of finance or engineering. Thanks for being here. Appreciate it, guys.
And David, this is for you.
Oh!
Our official new coach.
Oh, nice, nice.
And now you have to work within a $10,000 budget.
Yeah. Did you hear that, Terry Baker, Rupert Murdoch, Roger Ailes? 10,000. Yeah, my executive producer says that's an increase from what we're getting. Coach, did you see that, Terry Baker? All right. Thank you very much. That's wonderful. Appreciate it, guys.